Yay. I'm glad you have your camera on and everything is good.
Yasmin, who are we expecting to attend today?
Bonnie is a maybe and everyone else is a yes.
Okay.
Aye.
I'll make you host.
Thank you. The meeting is recorded. Okay, the meeting is recorded.
If they started the recording, because I thought I heard that they.
It looks like it's recorded.
Okay.
Okay, it is 4 o'clock, so I guess we can begin. Who else are we waiting for? I think Commissioner
Well,
Benedict.
Yasmin said that Bonnie is a maybe, and you said Cheryl has resigned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Christina and Mark. She said everybody said they would be here, so
Okay.
we're waiting on those two plus possibly Bonnie. Hopefully Bonnie can join us because she gave some good feedback.
Who else is on this committee? Commissioner Maddox.
Yep, Maddox and Griffin Jones and Benitez.
Perfect. Thank you.
I was looking at Bonnie Benitez's email about the points she made regarding the bylaws, and somehow I dropped my phone and I lost the message that she sent. Could someone post it on the chat if possible, and so I can look at it? Or is
I don't
there?
know if I can post it, but I can tell you that Oh, it came through at 119 from Yasmin. And the title was Forward External Bylaws Committee. Did that help?
I don't know, because I looked through all my.
I can-
emails.
Let me send it to you again.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I just sent it out again.
Okay, thanks.
Case 403.
Oh.
Okay. So this is the Commission on Police Practices Bylaws Ad Hoc Committee meeting or Ad Hoc Bylaws Committee meeting. So the first item that's going to be on tonight's agenda is to be able to choose a chair. So we can open that up for discussion.
Looks like Alec has his hand raised.
Commissioner Barria,
Yeah, I would nominate Doug if he wants the job.
You know, I think it'd be better to have somebody else because of concern about replicating things that were on the old commission. I'm willing to do a lot of the legwork, but I think from a perception point of view, it would be better to have somebody else be the chair.
Okay, in that case, I nominate Mark. If he's willing to accept.
Well, he
He's
went
muted.
dark.
Sorry, I'm having issues with unmuting. Yes, I am. I've spent a lot of time preparing for this, and I'm happy to accept that nomination.
perfect, thank you. So you can step right on in.
We probably should vote on it.
Oh,
What do you think, Octavio?
I'm fine with Mark. So
Okay,
I'll vote for him.
Okay, and I will
two
too.
for Mark. 3 for Mark.
3.
so it looks like it's unanimous. So Commissioner Maddox, you are now chair of this committee. Congratulations.
Awesome. Give me just 1 second. I'm getting my dinner from outside.
That's okay. Take your time.
What may be helpful to Alex's earlier point about Doug, if you want to, or maybe Charmaine, if you can provide the group some context about how we arrived at interim bylaws that were originally proposed, how we got to today.
Okay. Well, the interim commission, which was the former members of the CRB at the time that Measure B passed, worked on developing the interim bylaws, and they were based on the CRB bylaws, but adding in all of the new powers and authorities of the commission. And you know, there are several things that were changed, but we used basically the outline or structure that we had in our old bylaws. And yeah, so that basically is it. And so they were well, actually, I'll take I guess there's one more step. So we adopted our own interim bylaws that we used to operate on. And then we proposed these bylaws. And the only difference between the interim commission's bylaws and the proposed bylaws, or the bylaws we put forward for consideration by the permanent commission, is that the interim bylaws did not have an election process, because we were anticipating that it would be a short-lived entity. It turned out being longer than we expected, but we didn't anticipate having to elect officers and so forth. But so we added back in a process very similar to what the CRB did for election of officers. And I think that was the only significant change from the interim commission's bylaws and this proposal. And again, this is only a recommendation, a starting point. And so, you know, we can tear it apart as as necessary, but at least it gives us, you know, a structure to work from.
Much appreciated.
I appreciate that context, Doug. I am gonna make a request of staff to send that, because I believe this is only in PDF that we have that current version. If we could receive that in a Word document or other editable format. I would like to just invite, if there, thank you to Yasmin for sending out Commissioner Benitez's comments. Are there suggestions for how we move forward? Do we want to go line by line or section by section? Are there overarching things that we think we could identify? I know that for myself, I do believe that there's some sections that we could save some time in our revision process, because the implementation ordinance, particularly section 26.1107, sort of exactly spells out the duties and discretionary powers. And so that's municipal code. And so I think that is sort of copy paste in some ways, but I don't know if there's overarching sort of thematic thoughts about what we have before us before we dive into maybe the nitty gritty.
You know, I would say maybe going through it to section by section, and you're right, there are some things that are duplicative of the implementation ordinance and other documents, which is why we had at the very beginning a authority, so that it's clear what supersedes, so that you know, if something is in an ordinance, we can't go against that. And so these are kind of a hierarchy of things. But I think it's helpful, especially for people that may not have access to the implementation ordinance, to be able to, you know, see succinctly what our powers are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe I was not clear, Doug. My apologies. That rather than remove those sections, but keep the implementation ordinance does have very, very detailed duties and discretionary power sections as well. So just borrowing the language into this to save us that time.
Sure. And I might say that it's, you know, part of the reason we organize it this way is that the implementation ordinance doesn't have it organized nice and neatly like we have here in the bylaws. And so you have to kind of go through and see, well, is this a power or is this an authority, and so forth. And so it was real helpful to us to be able to put them into those two categories, or these are the things that we are required to do, and these are the things that we can do if we wanted it.
Yes, I do. I do not disagree.
Question.
Yes.
Foundationally, as an ad hoc committee, do we have to have a quorum to take action? And if so, how, do we define quorum in here?
Well, we don't have bylaws yet, so we really don't have a quorum, but I think in the absence of bylaws, it would be a majority of the members of the committee, and we have 1, 2,
7,
3,
I believe.
4.
Correct?
Well, Cheryl is resigned, and so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so we need 4 people for a quorum, and we have 4 people, so we're fine.
Okay, but I was just wondering, and is in our bylaws, we need to state what a quorum is for our committee?
Well, actually, we don't have bylaws yet, and that's part of the issue, is that, and so in the absence of bylaws, a quorum would be a majority of the members that are active members.
Yeah, my question was, do we have to have that in the bylaws, in the draft bylaws?
Oh, yeah.
So Commissioner, Byer, correct. In section 2 of Article 1, Doug was, Commissioner Case was just referencing the authority section, and within that you will find Robert's Rules of Order, which then it discusses in depth what quorum is. Does that answer your question?
It does, but probably more clear if we actually put it into our draft bylaws. And you can call me Alec.
Okay.
Perfect.
Perfectly okay.
Yeah, and we have a quorum section for the commission. I don't recall, we can maybe look at it when we get there, whether or not there is a separate I don't think that that we specify specifically, so maybe we should, what a quorum is for a committee meeting.
Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay,
and so maybe make a note of that when we get to committees.
What might be, before we go article by article and examine it, recognizing that yes, there is a need for us to move expeditiously, and also being realistic about our shared time together, and ensuring that we can give thorough and thoughtful thought to each section. So yes, there is the goal of moving these forward and doing so in a manner consistent with our charge. So I may suggest that we, as a matter of process, look to maybe just get through approximately half of the articles. So maybe just through Article 4 today. And then that way there's still an opportunity for absent ad hoc committee members to participate, and we can give updates on what we have drafted thus far. How does that feel to
Yeah, I
the
don't
group?
think any of us expected to get through the entire thing today.
Oh, I don't think we did either. I just wanted to name that and ensure that I am not going to power through just for the sake of completing. Great. Let's move directly into just looking at the draft document and moving article by article, section by section. So we can start with the preamble. That is sort of the genesis, but if folks have comments on that, and then we'll move into Article 1.
Yeah, a question I have, and this may be a question for Dwayne, is that it says this bylaws, it should be these, last sentence says this bylaws, it should be these bylaws are the operating procedure for the commission governance. We should clarify whether this constitutes an operating procedure, because if it is an operating procedure, then it's going to have to require city council
Meet and
approval.
confer.
Yeah, and which could require a meet and confer, and then every time we want to make a modification to it, we have to go back to the city council. We adopted the interim bylaws without city council approval, and the CRB did not require, approval by anybody other than the CRB, other than we had to have it reviewed by the city attorney's office.
what are you recommending, Doug?
Maybe, how about taking out that last sentence and then asking Dwayne that question of whether or not we have to get these approved by the city council?
I think that's fair. Yes, because that good flag, because that could create a whole slew of fun.
I'm gonna start redlining everything so we can have a redlined document.
Fantastic. I'm doing that on paper, but I appreciate you capturing it there. Other thoughts on preamble before we move into Article 1?
Well,
Yeah.
I think we should correct this to these.
Yeah, well, I was suggesting we eliminate it altogether, but if we keep it, you're right, we should make it grammatically correct.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sorry.
And then these bylaws are the,
Up here?
yeah.
Yeah, so if we keep it, we should make it grammatically correct, but I'm suggesting that we,
Yeah, we consult
Just-
the,
that we not get,
Yes, because that specific phrasing of operating procedure means something very particular. Great. Last call on the preamble before we move to Article 1. Great. Any thoughts on Section 1? It is fairly straightforward in my eyes. But open to feedback there.
Good to me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alec. Section 2 authority.
Yeah, I noticed that we are missing something important, and that is the implementation ordinance. And I think that's because we developed these before, well, maybe not. Anyway, the implementation ordinance is not included there. We do have the ordinance that governs the office of the Commission on Police Practices, but the commission itself, which is the implementation ordinance, should be maybe even above that. So maybe San Diego City Charter, and then after the city charter should be the implementation ordinance, and we can ask Charmaine to fill in the,
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug or Charmaine, but implementation ordinance is now part of municipal code. So to honor your point, maybe listing that specific chapter and section first within that list of San Diego Municipal Code, including but not limited to, and prioritizing what we're calling implementation ordinance is now enacted municipal code, listing it first.
sure. And it probably makes a lot of sense because, one item of the municipal code is equal to any other item in the municipal code. So putting in the same line would be a good idea.
Great. Other thoughts?
Do we know what the section is of the municipal code that is now, that was the implementation ordinance that is now codified?
We do. I mean, I could look it up. It's on our website,
Okay,
but I don't know on the top of my head.
I can add it before I send this out.
thank you.
Mhm.
I know the drill down of the subsections, but I could not tell you what more highly than that. Other thoughts on section 2 authority?
And
Not for me.
Great, thank you. Moving on to Article 2, purpose, mission, duties, powers, and objectives. Section 1, purpose and mission. I
Perfectly
believe
accept-
a lot of this is copied or drafted in consultation with things that are already out there.
We just need to make sure this is what's in the
In 26-11 or in that implementation ordinance, correct? And other thoughts on purpose and mission, with the caveat of that it will be reviewed to ensure consistency with language in implementation ordinance.
Yeah, except that I think the implementation ordinance has a section called purpose, but it doesn't have mission, so we added to that. So the last sentence, it says the mission of this commission is to hold law enforcement accountable and so forth. That's not in the implementation ordinance, but I think there is a section that says purpose and implementation ordinance.
I believe there is mirrored language of that mission within the outreach and communications section of the implementation ordinance 26-11-14. If we can, once I have this in an editable, I'm happy to copy paste, but I think that actually mirrors the language used elsewhere within that municipal code.
Mhm.
Section 2, duties. And I believe Doug sort of talked about that this was pulling in things from implementation ordinance because of it is not structured in this same exact format, particularly the way it lists out duties, and then with what we have as section 3 currently, discretionary powers. They're sort of just listed mixed together. My note on both sections 2 and 3 is to, yes, ensure that I agree that they're separated into duties and discretionary, and then just making sure that the language is consistent, because I know that there's a couple of little things I know that we need to add. I don't know exactly if this would be a duty or if it needs to go into outreach and communications, but there is a specific charge that we have an annual special meeting with Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods Committee of Council.
Mhm.
Other thoughts on duties?
That's perfectly fine.
Doug or Octavio?
Yeah, I'm fine with it as it is, adding the requirement to meet. Well, and we also have a duty to prepare a semi-annual report. Oh, it is here. Okay.
Yes, item 5.
Yeah, so maybe I would just add it to item 5, and then take it directly from the implementation ordinance.
Did someone say it's in there? Is it in one of these two sections?
Yeah.
The reporting
Yeah.
requirement, yeah, it is Article 2, Section 2, number 5.
I'm sorry, what did I miss?
Well, there's also the duty to meet. Is it twice a year, Mark?
Yeah, just PSLN, so Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods, it's just an annual requirement. An annual special meeting is the language that is used within implementation ordinance.
Okay, yeah, so maybe add that as a separate one, because it's a little bit different.
Which,
Right.
which,
Adding it to section 2 duties, adding a 6 that talks about that duty to report to that committee. And the committee has changed its name, by the way. It's no longer Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods. It's simply Public Safety Committee.
Which we can then put in there. I think when it was adopted or when it was
Right.
drafted, I think it says PSLN in implementation.
Right. No, but we can change that because it's
Yeah. It changed back to that. Other thoughts on duties and discretionary powers? I have essentially the same thoughts, just to ensure that this specificity of the language is not in conflict with implementation ordinance, and that requires just a little bit of reading through.
That's good.
I'm good.
Great. Alec and Octavio, Doug, anything else on 3?
I agree.
No, nothing else on 3.
Yeah. I'm
Great.
just thinking to myself that we picked the perfect chair, because he's done an excellent job of doing exactly what needs to be done.
Agreed.
This is fun for me. I love to read these sorts of documents. I am an outlier in the world. So section 4, which is titled Outreach and Education, I may suggest to mirror implementation ordinance. We call it Outreach and Communications, particularly because this section speaks less to the education component.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Fantastic. Nice little clip we're moving on. I appreciate you folks. Section 5, independence. I had no thoughts, but we'll invite others.
No, I like it. We spend a lot of time working on that. It's more of a philosophical thing, but I think it's important to state.
No, I appreciate it being in there, and I have no edits to that, but definitely not remove, because I think that is very important and what sets this particular commission apart.
Well, I'll trust you on this one, Doug, because I'm a little bit troubled by the lack of specificity here, especially in light of the memo we got saying that someone had said or done something on social media to draw negative attention. But I'll rely on you guys. If you're happy with Section 5 independence, then I'm happy with it.
I like that it makes an emphasis on the commission being an independent commission. So I'm fine with it.
Okay.
And I don't know anyone else's thoughts, but perhaps recognizing that there are two documents that the commission is responsible for, operating procedures and bylaws. And I think this is more of how to, I think that they have different functions. And so, Alec, I think some of that is more captured within both authority and then operating procedures. That's my personal opinion on that.
Very good.
Great. Article 3, membership. Section 1, selection and appointment.
I think we
In
can.
my review.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we can get rid of the first two paragraphs or sentences.
Yeah, we because that's just background, so we can just start it at A. And maybe just because it's a reflection of reality of as we know for boards and commission, there will be up to 25. Because that's a fine point, but
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Yeah,
is there, sorry, my apologies, I can't remember if there was discussion about, and Doug, you probably maybe have also looked at this, about that, I believe implementation ordinance discusses that you will remain in the seat on expired term. Do we need to have expired term and continuing until filled, or is that within?
You know, it would not hurt to add that in the bylaws. You know, because that's true. Like if you move out of the city council district, you're no longer eligible. If you move out of the city, you can't be on the commission.
Or like Doug, because I just know this for you and I in particular, who on 1-year terms, I believe that if there is not and I know that staff and council are working to create a pipeline so that there are additional folks ready to step in. But I believe that part of that resolution at council for our votes included that we would remain in the role until another commissioner or replacement commissioner was identified.
Yeah, I thought we had that. If it doesn't say that, we definitely should.
And let's. I'm not seeing it specifically, and maybe it ended up somewhere else, but I think this is the place that it needs to go.
I would agree.
agreed.
Agree.
And then,
And we probably can take out the sentence that says half of the initial 25 commissioners will be appointed for a 1-year term, because that's already happened and will not happen in the future. So it's unnecessary.
yes, and then maybe that is or would you propose adding the remain until filled as like item C and then moving C to D? Or maybe its own just D item? Should it be included in one of these subpoints, or should it be?
I would make it separate, maybe put it between B and C.
Agreed. That
That
flows better.
That was my thought. So a new section C in discussion of remaining, if you are still meet the requirements of the seat that you fill, that you will remain until the vacancy is filled, even if your term is expired, and then moving the current C to D.
Okay, so you're gonna have to repeat that, please.
So there will be removing the last sentence of section 1, item B, the section that begins with half of the initial, because that has already happened.
Yep.
A new section C, which we will need to pull the language or just craft it about commissioners remaining in their seat even on an expired term until the vacancy for that role has been filled.
Okay,
And then C would change to D, which then makes me realize we may have some inconsistency with the taxonomy of how we number and letter things across articles. That is, we don't need to address here, but as we finesse the document, just making sure that we're consistent in our hierarchy.
Then in the last paragraph there of the section, an issue that Bonnie raised is it says prior to assuming the duties of office, members must complete the required training approved by the commission and subscribe to the oath of office administered by the city clerk's office. And the issue is, do we want to include the required training program approved by the commission?
I do not.
And I agree with Bonnie that it shouldn't be there.
Agree. Yeah, same.
Doug, what are your thoughts?
I think it was there because it's in order to do some of the duties, you have to be trained on it. But I'm not sure that we necessarily have to. Maybe we can have a separate section on training and then talk about required training, but not make it something you have to do in order to assume. Assume the duties of office.
Yes.
I could see it fitting within section 2 responsibilities that you need to do it, but not that is the requirement that you have to finish before you can start anything.
So can I add also that once the commissioners take the oath of office, they are actually voting members. They become voting members automatically. So this right here is inconsistent with what the actual process is.
How would you restate it?
Well, I think she's agreeing that we should take it out
Oh, I
because
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it could just say board or commission candidates maybe must subscribe to the oath of office administered by the city clerk's office, and then all members reappointed must retake, or all members must subscribe to the oath of office and sign the oath card, and cut everything before that.
Hey, Director Mosley, this is so helpful the way you're doing it right in front of my eyes. Instead of me scribbling and scratching on everything, so thank you for that.
I just want to make sure that what we have here is correct. I know that Commissioner Maddox just made a comment, so I just want to make sure I'm not getting confused. Does this read correctly what's on the screen?
Yeah, members must subscribe to the oath of office.
Yep,
Okay, perfect.
that looks good to me.
Is it okay with
Section-
everyone?
Yeah,
Yes.
are we all good with that and ready to move to the next? Because I think we've been moving in a clip, and I imagine this particular section may take a little bit longer.
Well, should
At least
we
for-
add something at the end of section?
I'll be back into
Section
the section.
1, adding that once members have taken the oath of office and signed the oath card, they become voting members, or some language to that effect? Or should that be somewhere else?
I'm not responding. I'm thinking and reading.
Okay,
Or so let's see. I'm looking at the language. Must sign the oath card upon which members become full voting members of CPP. Maybe we just add that little. Does that sort of address what you're getting at? Yeah, because there is no like, okay, you signed, you took the oath and you signed, but there isn't that finality there. I appreciate you calling that out. So maybe after sign the oath card, there is a
That looks very good.
subsequently will become, yeah. Fantastic. Ready for section 2?
Yes.
And just want to hold space for the idea of training, and I think that there is an opportunity to include some of that discussion into item D here.
Exactly.
So starting with section A, meeting attendance, I have a couple of notes and then we'll open it. It says the unexcused absences from 2 consecutive meetings within implementation ordinance, it actually spells out 3.
Okay, then we should be consistent.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
you are so good.
I took a lot of notes on this.
That's easy.
Other thoughts on the attendance section? Sorry, I'm not done with the attendance section. That's still the same one. The excused absence component, I particularly because I think of the genesis of our particular commission, intentional focus on youth and low income folks as a part of this group, recognizing and trying to address inequities within the bylaws of the Commission for Arts and Cultures. There is a work related, and I can pull the exact language and look at that, but there is an unforeseeable work related event component that also is classified as unexcused.
Yeah, well, I think that's well, it does say an unforeseeable event, but I think it may be good to be more specific.
I think it's good to keep it vague like that, because an unforeseen event, I mean, that's covers a lot of ground, and that's what we want. We can't delineate everything that might cause someone to miss a meeting, because then we have to add illness or health of member, of commissioner, friend or family member or partner, we
and
can
really, yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes it's better just to be
keep it open.
what another idea that I had when I heard him talking about youth members is maybe we ought to have something for required required academic required school attendance, or
Agreed.
And maybe it's not in this time, because I appreciate that. Maybe I can dig around some more and see if there's anything else. I don't know. Well, Youth Commission has had such a challenge reaching quorum ever, but I'm wondering if there are things within that in particular that we can use as a model. And once we get this draft, I can pull some of that together for a subsequent discussion on this article, so that we don't necessarily sit here and wordsmith one particular little sub point, but I think we can capture that. How does that feel?
Sure.
That sounds good to me.
Great. And then I would say whatever change we make there, just ensuring that we carry that on to section B, case review. Other thoughts on case review?
I was going to
Item
suggest
B.
that we may want to put this entire section on hold until we decide how we're going to do case review. Because we haven't decided yet whether we're going to continue the team approach and how that team approach would work. And
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, so I would maybe put this on hold.
Can we go back to meeting attendance just because some of the meetings are virtual? Some of the commissioners have the option to attend meetings virtually. Do you want to add that, or do you just want to leave it out for now?
I
Because
mean,
it-
like they don't have any internet or something, or their computer craps out.
If they can't make it, it's under the Brown Act. If they can't make a meeting in person under the Brown Act, they can attend virtually if it's brought before the commission prior to the meeting.
I see.
That probably
And-
would be good to include. Charmaine, would you be willing to provide some suggested language?
Of course.
Great. Thank you for that flag. Anything else on A, and then B? I'm great with holding that, because this is a lot of this. Some of these other things may be a reflection of other committees' work and thoughts too, that we will just need to incorporate, and the cabinet. We good to move to C, committee participation?
Yes.
How do that members are required to participate on one? How does that?
Or maybe I should say at least one,
Yeah.
I like that,
because you could that
especially if that is not the goal, and preparing for things, but where you got with interim commission of recognizing that if there you may have to step in should that to multiple things. Good on C.
Yes.
Who are Charmaine, who are our absent members of this ad hoc committee?
Commissioner Benitez and Commissioner Griffin Jones.
If I may suggest, similar to case review, I think particularly look to some of, I know that there's more thoughts and I don't want to just blow past D and E, because I think that there are some thoughts even in reflection of our last full commission meeting. So my suggestion is to wait until we have more of our folks. I have some initial thoughts, and I think that these may become bigger discussions that we maybe need to, once we do some of this moving at a nice clip, that we then have subsequent, like really these,
yeah,
I don't
would
want to
agree,
say
'cause
contentious, but
but I think we've already had some discussion of what the training curriculum is going to be, who decides that. There's been Bonnie raised the issue of should we require 2 police ride-alongs? I can see some commissioners who might have an objection to ride-alongs at all. So yeah, I think you're right to probably be good to postpone that one.
Agreed.
Great. And section E, community outreach. I think there is a value to intentionally vague, and an importance to sort of meet that in the middle a little bit, with what does like a community outreach activity mean, and we don't have to drill down all the way, in my opinion, and recognizing that as people are, this is also, yes, an internal workings document. It is also a bit of a, for folks like myself, is a recruitment document, because any board or commission that I would consider joining, I would read their bylaws before even applying to better understand what the work looks like. And that seems a little too vague to me, but open to other feedback.
I would recommend looking at the outreach section in the ordinance.
Great. Yeah, I think that there was some,
There's a lot of,
even the and requirement for quarterly, I think within implementation ordinance, it is delineated as a biannual requirement. It's not called community outreach activity in implementation ordinance, I don't believe, but essentially the spirit of that is.
Yeah, although the ordinance talks about the commission as itself as a whole, whereas this section talks about individual members performing community outreach. So there's a difference between the commission as a whole doing outreach and individual members having a requirement.
I think also we have to keep in mind, when this was created, we didn't have a community engagement coordinator.
That's true.
So should we put this on hold?
I want to look at some other, I personally would like to look at some other documents, and encourage those of us sitting here to maybe sit on a little bit what community outreach also means. Because like if I go to my neighborhood association meeting and I'm there and have an opportunity to talk for a minute, is that outreach activity? Does it have to be just for, if it's within a larger meeting about a multitude of things, and maybe doesn't have to be super delineated within the document, and particularly since we are the initial cohort of the commission, at least having that discussion to bring forward to the rest of the commission of what that looks like. Good to move to, are we good to sort of table that for future consideration and then move to ethical conduct?
Yes.
Great, ethical conduct.
How are we on time?
9 minutes. So I think, in my opinion, we largely can finish Article 3 today. We have 1, 2, 3 subsections left.
I think that's standard language, that ethical conduct thing is standard language, and it's perfectly fine with me.
Octavio?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The ethical conduct section, do you have any feedback about that one?
No, I just reviewed it and I don't see any, I don't have any suggestions, any will change.
I would add the caveat of, because it talks about team leaders and things like that, that we would need to just, if we adjust section B case review in the future, that we ensure that section F ethical conduct mirrors that.
I'm just gonna say the same thing. So maybe highlight the term team leader and case review team. Because we may or may not have team leaders.
Right. Good point.
Great. So bring us home for the afternoon, section 3 removal. I have an overall comment about both subsections that this is adding consistent language with implementation ordinance, but particularly 261106 for both voluntary and removal for cause. I think it was largely the same, but I think looking at my notes, there might be just a wordsmithing.
And a question that Bonnie raised, and I don't recall, maybe if you have it in front of you, she asked about the word misuse, because misuse appears a couple of times in B, misuse of the position, misuse of police issued documents. Is the word misuse, I guess the first question is that the word that the ordinance uses? We probably should simply say ordinance instead of implementation ordinance, but is that the is misuse the word that the ordinance uses? And if so, we should keep the same word. And I don't know whether or not the ordinance defines misuse, because at the beginning of the ordinance, there's a list of definitions, and I don't recall whether or not misuse was defined.
I think maybe that was at recognizing like how I note take, that I think that was part of my thoughts about that. Is I think that there was several like language and word things that were inconsistent. Give me 1 second. I'm literally just pulling up our. Let's see.
And this
'Cause
is one
then-
area.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is one area where we can't be vague.
Correct. And misuse means a variety of things to different folks. And if it does not, let's see. What did I even noted? What did I know? 261106. Just gonna pull it up so we can just do it now. Let's see if that is addressed. No. Misuse is not within at least the article and division, at least within that ordinance. I don't know if it is more largely defined within the municipal code, because I imagine misuse exists.
Well,
That means a very
can you get, is the language in the Muni code similar
Yes.
to what we have here? Then
there is instances of using misuse or like that misuse in particular is a used phrase within the
okay.
ordinance.
Then can we just task Mark to make sure that this section is consistent with the Muni code?
Yeah, I agree with that. Just making sure it is consistent, and then maybe to address not in the document, but Bonnie's concerns, if staff can find if the Muni code largely defines what misuse of all of the misuses that are outlined in the implementation ordinance, because it may just be a lack of knowledge of the larger city definitions. Other thoughts before we close that section and move to the end of the meeting?
The second paragraph under remove for cause starts upon receiving information that a member may be subject to remove for cause. What does that mean? A random call comes in, they're saying that Alec was driving drunk, or a random call comes in that Alec was talking about a case with his friends in the bar, or what does that mean?
This would also be, because it is, I have the municipal code in front of me. It is specifically spelled out of what it is actually a written there's some language there that we just need to make consistent about what that looks like.
Okay,
Well, I think it's the previous section states specifically what the grounds for removal are. So if that the next language, the language on the next paragraph is referring to those grounds for removals.
So I can probably shed some light on this, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
If
Go
a commissioner or a community member informs me or someone from the commission or staff that a commissioner has been engaged in any type of behavior, that behavior, I would have to bring that to the cabinet's attention, and then the cabinet will decide on how to proceed with that.
You know, and maybe
Thank you.
wording that first sentence there, you know, upon receiving information that a member has engaged in actions that may subject the member to removal for cause, something like that.
Yeah, maybe just some of what even of how you described it, Charmaine.
Mhm.
I think just finesse that a little bit, from your context and then from the ordinance. Great. Very happy with our progress. We did.
Yeah, I'm just looking, it's 13 pages and we got through 6. And so that's pretty good.
I want to go back to removal for costs, item number 5. It says unexcused absences from at least 2 consecutive meetings, and I thought we agreed it was 3.
Oh, yes. And so I think what is on there is not final, because we just need to review it, this whole section, through the ordinance language. And I appreciate that call out.
Would it be possible for you and Charmaine to work together and get a copy of the revisions sent to the committee prior to our next meeting?
Oh, that is my intent. So thank you for saying it out loud. So Charmaine, if you can send this first to me, and then I will send it back once I looked at it, and then we can send it to the rest of the ad hoc group.
Perfect, I will.
And then, as a procedural question, Charmaine, is Yasmin going to continue to support in scheduling of meetings? I take pause to do that, to have that conversation with, right now, recognizing that a third of our members are not present.
Yes, Alina has been on vacation since, oh, I'm losing track of time. I think last week. She's been on a mighty long vacation, which she deserves. So once she comes back,
Staff will support, got it.
yeah, once she comes back, I think it would be turned over to Alina.
Great. I should have been more vague with my language. Will staff continue to support for now until we have, I would say, 5 or 6, all 6 of us together, and then maybe we can discuss just here. Great. Other items before we end for the evening?
When is our next meeting?
So I think we're going to need to work with staff to do that scheduling component. I am reluctant to have that conversation right now without knowing their schedules, and trying to ensure that they can participate. Would staff be able to get that out on a doodle on Monday or Tuesday, Charmaine?
I can find out.
Will you just provide me an update?
I will. Thank you.
Great. Other thoughts before I let folks enjoy their Friday? It is Friday. Friday evenings.
I appreciate you guys,
weekend.
that's all.
Yeah, I've enjoyed our process tonight. I think we made some good headway.
Have a
Appreciate you.
good weekend. Thank you, Paul.
That's it.
Okay, thanks.
Have a nice
Alright.
weekend.
Thanks, folks. Have a great weekend.
Bye.